Are we recording on that end?
Yes.
Yep, it's all going.
Cool.
It's all going good.
Good.
Still going. We've been recording for 3 minutes, 41 seconds.
Right.
Ooh, look at you. All right.
The outtakes, the extras.
Anyway, okay, let's kick off.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that asks the titular question, Netflix or cinema, where are you going to spend your money? Which one gives you more bang for your buck? The way we go about doing this is that we watch films in the cinema, watch films in Netflix, we rate them out of 5, we average them and we see which one has won the week. My name is Tosin and I am up in the Midlands, and with me, joining me through the miracle of modern technology called a phone, are Shaun
Yes.
and Sharon.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry. How are you, Tosin?
Doing good. You sounded like you weren't quite sure that.
Yeah. I was sort of looking at. I was just sort of staring at something for a minute, and then so I lost my train of thought. But
you're like,
I'm with you now. I'm with you now.
You're like, wait, that's my name.
That's me. I'm here.
Cool. How have you guys been doing?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Really.
Enjoying the sun today, haven't we?
And it's been an interesting week, really.
Yeah. I've had a week off work, so I have been doing.
You look well.
Like
You look well. You look great. Because normally
Brown
you're
as
just
a
like
nut.
you're just like brown, and you've just been working hard. And
Yeah, I'm normally
just-
frazzled.
yeah, I know.
Well, usually Sharon's just sort of like stumbled in from somebody's garden straight into the podcast.
Yes, normally. Yeah.
Well, yeah, something like that. Normally, I mean, don't get me wrong. She looks great, but she looks sort of fresh, shall we say,
Yeah.
more relaxed.
Shaun,
Yeah.
I'm going to stare you away from that now. I'm going to
Yeah, quite. Okay.
But I've had like every day's been a holiday. So I've been to London with my nephew. I've been out and about with my mum today. I've been having a day in my own garden. So every day has been a mini holiday for me this week.
Yeah.
So I'm well chilled.
Cool. And for anybody who's listening who might not have listened to the podcast before, who's wondering why Sharon will be coming in from somebody's garden, it's not because she's a burglar, it's because she's actually a gardener.
I'm actually a gardener.
Yeah,
Got one too.
It just occurred to me now that I was like, hang on a second, wait, that could sound weird. That could sound really,
Yeah, I'm not
really bad.
stealing someone's ornaments.
Oh, imagine that. You could be like the gnome thief. You could be like the gnome burglar of the Isle of Wight.
It's a thing. Yeah.
I think it could be the feast of the bugs. We could call it the feast of the bugs, because I think you get bitten on occasion.
I do get bitten a lot.
That's quite tall. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I get bitten a lot.
So yeah. So that's the new movie. That's Sharon's movie. The
Sharon,
feast of the bugs.
Sharon, did you just say that it's a known thing for people to steal gnomes?
Yes,
Really?
it's a thing. We used to call them garden thefts. But yeah, hanging baskets, dazzle stones, gnomes, garden ornaments, all very stealable.
Easy to go, I suppose.
Yeah, grab them, take them, sell them on at a car boot or somewhere. But yes, all that sort of thing is very, very stealable.
That never showed up on Inspector Morse.
No, they never do that in your country crime things, do they?
Okay. All right, cool. Wow, the things you learn. You see, Netflix
Yes.
or cinema, not only do we just rant and rave about films, we also give you some education. So next time you get yourself
Yes.
a garden gnome, chain it down.
Yeah, be careful where you put it.
All right, cool. This week, just wanted to kick off with saying something. We've had a couple of people get in touch with us. Somebody on Netflix, there was someone called Divya Movie Buff, who got in touch with us, I believe, from Australia. And
Wow.
yeah, because
G'day.
there's a film that I think they're involved with that is on Netflix called Ali's Wedding, and it seems it's like an Australia/Iran co-production, and they just I think it's just been released on Netflix, and they just got in touch with us and said, please know that this film is up. So I just thought, okay, cool. If they're gonna get the time to get in touch with us, I'm gonna try and watch that film and then maybe review it next week.
We'll watch it and review it, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually up. I've checked it. It is available in our region in the UK, and it's
And that's Ali's Wedding.
Ali's Wedding. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll catch that then.
yeah. So thank you very much, Divya Movie Buff, for getting in touch. We will see whether we can review that for next week. And also, a friend of the show, Peter Jenkins, got in touch with us, and a while back when we spoke about 8th grade, he mentioned 8th grade and another film called Booksmart as one of the best, as far as he's concerned, one of the best films of the year. And so we're going to have a discussion with him on this episode in which we're going to include him in it. But as we said, each week we choose films. So we try and bring 3 films forward from cinema, and we try and bring 3 films forward from Netflix or other streaming services that you might have at home without having to leave the house and go to the cinema. And that means that every week we might watch more things, especially if your name is Shaun. And some things might be left on the also pile. So we have to choose which 3 things we're going to go for. So we're going to have a little section which we're going to call also rans, which are shows or things or films that we've seen this week that we have not put forward into the official Netflix versus cinema context this week. So Shaun, I'll let you kick off and tell us what are the other things you've seen this week, and how would you rate them?
Okay, well, I've seen a few things this week. Actually, I've completed watching this series. There's a Netflix series called Big Mouth.
Yep.
Which was, and I've seen that, and I watched a movie called iBoy, and I think I'll go a bit more in depth with the domestics. That'll be part of our.
That'll be your choice.
Yeah, that's your choice for this week.
Netflix.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just give you one. Bookmouth is Bookmouth.
Bookmouth.
Okay. Big Mouth.
Yeah, Bookmouth. There you go. Okay, so Big Mouth is this TV series or Netflix series. It's critically, it's got lots of awards, and it's really
it's animated, isn't it?
It's an animated series. It's basically about adolescents, and growing up, and they've all got these little monsters called the hormone monsters, which cause them. And there's Uncle Shane, who's turns up and he's like, "Oh, what have you done?"
He's like, "What have you done with yourself at night?"
Yeah, what have you done with yourself? And there's even a scene with like a sequence with Shane, and there's a big jury, and they're in the jury, and he goes, "Oh, what have you?" It's basically adolescents growing up and just discovering themselves and puberty and things.
Yep.
And it is really, really funny, and it's you look at all the reviews and everything, everybody says it's such a good show, and if it had been out when they were that age, they would have been really, really good. There's obviously dysfunctional families, but it's very, 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 very adult. But it's a really, really, really good series.
Okay, cool.
So,
what would you give it?
If you're not easily offended, it's well worth a watch, and it's really, I'll give that a massive, massive 4 stars.
All right, cool. And iBoy.
So that's 4. That's an iBoy. Okay, iBoy. This is sort of 2017 Netflix. I just happened to I thought I'd check it out. It's about a lad who gets a bit of a mobile phone stuck in his brain, and after an operation, and he can do becomes like a bit of a superhero. He can tap into lots of he can tap into phones. He can make people's phones have a text message, because there's a bit where he's going to get beaten up, and he sends a text message that says, "Oh, it's not me you're after," and they all like, "Whoa, who is it?" So that, for me, would probably be... I had a few issues with it, but it's well worth a watch, so a good 3 stars for that one.
Oh, wow. So, I'm just looking at it up now. So it's actually a British film starring Maisie Williams.
British film, yeah, Maisie Williams is in this from Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's gone through a bit of a trauma, and he sort of finds... He can read people's minds, and he can cause, anything. He can tap into anything electrical, and it's okay. It's worth a watch, if you like those type of films. So
okay,
because that gets a 3 star.
Yeah, I was just looking at the stuff on Netflix. I was looking at this. Looks like a nailed on 3-star movie if I ever saw one.
Yeah. So I mean, it's worth a watch.
All right,
that's a 3 star.
3 star.
So it's not that bad. It's 3 stars. So
all right,
get that, and then and that's it. So what about you, Tosin? What have you?
Sharon, you don't have any also rans, do you?
I've only got one also ran, which is, I think, I saw it on BBC, so it's not technically within our remit, but it will probably be appearing on Netflix or one of the streaming channels soon, and that is the series Ghosts, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And it's briefly about this London couple who unexpectedly inherit a big, big, big country house. Mm-hmm. And they get there, and it is basically inhabited already by a whole gang of ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
But they can't see them. And then one day she has an accident where basically one of the ghosts pushes her out of a window. It's quite funny. And she wakes up and then she can see ghosts. And she then starts interacting with the ghosts who live in her house.
How many stars?
And it is very, very funny. I really enjoyed it. And I don't like comedies normally. But because it was British and it reminded me a little bit of Detectivists in that it was slightly, off kilter.
Yep.
And it just appealed to the ridiculousness of me. So I would give that a 4 stars. And I would say if you can check out Ghosts, do, because it is genuinely funny.
Oh, cool.
That's my only also ran.
This is all the stuff in the also ran. We have an awesome also ran column. Imagine what we're going to have in the actual films that we put forward this week. But, okay, so for me, also rans, I've got Samurai Jack season 5, and I love this show, Samurai Jack. It's animated, but Shaun, I think you quite like it. It sort of goes into, it's almost kind of like a fusion of a sort of blaxploitation / Bushido type movie, all that kind of stuff.
What's it called again?
Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack. And this is on All 4, the Channel 4 thing. But I actually really want to talk about this on another episode. I'm hoping that maybe I won't watch anything this week and I'll just bring that back next week. And also a series called Dead to Me on Netflix, which I do want to talk about on another episode. So maybe that's me for the next 2 weeks. But yeah,
I might try and catch that out. What's that on BBC?
Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack is on Channel 4. It's on the
Channel 4.
So all4.com.
You should get on them all 4.
Yeah.
And is it a series? You've seen all of them, have you?
Yeah, I've seen all of them. I've seen all 5 seasons. And it's just, I mean, the action is some of the best action, and some of the frames of this animated thing could be pieces of art that you hang on a wall. But I really, really love it. And Dead to Me I saw on Netflix, which is Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini, who, as I said last week, I love and I would watch in almost anything. It's a good season. It's a good series. I don't think I would come back for season 2, but I would give that 4 out of 5. All right, cool. And now we get into the real meat of this week. And to kick off, we're going to talk about Rocketman. And this is a film that is out in cinemas at the moment. It is, you might recognize the name Rocketman as a very, very famous song by Elton John. And that is because, Sharon, why is that?
Because this is a film about Elton John.
Yeah.
It's part fantasy, part musical, part biopic. Basically taking you from Elton John's childhood as Reg Dwight through his adolescence as he starts to explore his creative side where he wants to perform music but he doesn't know quite how or through what medium, and then through his meeting up with Bernie Taupin, who he becomes a long-term collaborator with writing. Bernie wrote the words and Elton wrote the music to a lot of their then hit songs, and then it takes you through his life to his sort of I'm Still Standing days, through his addictions and his traumas, and to his spell in the Betty Ford clinic. So it's part fantasy, part musical, part biopic. But you saw this as well this week, didn't you, Tosin?
Yes, I did see this. I saw this, and that's pretty much a really, really good synopsis of it. Because I think this is a film that was directed by Dexter Fletcher, who famously stepped in to help them finish making Bohemian Rhapsody, which was another film about a 70s musical icon who also happened to be gay and all that kind of stuff. So I think it had a lot of comparisons to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bo Rap.
Yeah, but as you said, it is a bit different in that this film decides to become a musical, and it's essentially Elton John's story, but through his songs. But Dexter Fletcher has previous with this because he directed Sunshine on Leith.
Sunshine on Leith.
Yeah, a film that I know that we both like.
Yeah, I love that film.
Yeah. So he directed Sunshine on Leith, and so he kicks off with this whole thing, and it kicks off with Elton John in rehab in the Betty Ford clinic, as you said. So it starts off with him in rehab, and then the film, as it goes forward, he's telling his story as to how he's ended up in rehab. And at the beginning, I remember the first musical number that kicks off, and I was like, oh, I think I might like this, because I think that when you're trying to make a musical film nowadays, it's a bit difficult because you have the heyday of the musical where there was a certain look to it, and when you try to make a modern musical, it's a bit difficult because there's that sort of like magic of escapism that you don't quite get. And I think that the first musical number, the way they do it when he's a kid, and I think they're singing the song "The Bitch Is Back" or something, And
Yeah.
the way it happens, where they open up these doors and it goes from the way it transitions from the rehab room into his childhood, I'm like, okay, that is actually kind of magical. That is kind of magical, and I thought it was going to be in for. I feel like the film doesn't keep it up, and later on in the film, I find myself wondering, hang on a second, what's the point? What are we saying? We're not saying anything different or anything like that. Yeah, there were just bits after a while. I think it just started ticking all the sort of biopic boxes, which, and I'm guessing like with music biopics, I think drugs are probably a really, really big problem for the music industry, because every music biopic goes through the same structure. Somebody's young, writes a couple of songs, starts getting famous, gets into drugs, it all goes crazy, and then if they're lucky, they sort themselves out and then they go clean at the end.
Yes.
That's it. So
That's it.
that takes me back to like the old 70s film, That'll Be the Day. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's based on Jim McClane and the Stray Guys. It's not based on anyone in particular, but that's exactly how that sort of ends up. And
Yeah.
there was even the sequel Stardust where,
Yeah.
I remember...
Filmed on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, they do tend to be... That's another film with Hazel, Breaking Glass with Hazel
Yes,
O'Connor.
Hazel
That
O'Connor.
was,
In the
she's
80s.
in the 80s. So that's where it seems to be with
Yeah,
like
even
say,
the Ray Charles biopic, Ray, same thing.
Yeah. If it's like pop music or rock music, that seems to be the way they go.
Yeah, they
it's
get
not like
dragged
the sweet
into
old
this
Seven Brides for
world
Seven
of-
Brothers
no,
and all
no.
that. The old style sort of
Yeah.
musicals. When
Yes,
everything was
not
happy.
and even it's not like Sunshine on Leith, which is basically a
I've not seen
a
Sunshine
quite
on Leith.
straightforward story,
Is it?
really. It has its ups and downs, but it is a more musical in there. But the musical biopic is its own sort of beast of a different colour, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
I think you're right.
yeah. So
But this is sort of mixes a bit of all of them. I think it adds that whole where they are bursting into song and then they are
Yeah, for
in
sure.
set singing rather than just performing a music video or performing on stage. There's like the invisible fourth wall where they are singing to us,
Yeah.
and that's sort of interspersed with the performances and with the scenes where they're singing in studios and things. So you get these scenes of the musical numbers interspersed with some of the others, and it works on some occasions and it works
Yeah.
less well
yeah, I agree.
in others.
I agree with that. Like I think, for instance, there's a scene earlier where they perform "I Want Love," which is
Yes.
it's one of the newer Elton John songs. It has a video, has Robert Downey Jr. walking around.
Yes, it's quite. I regard that as his later Elton John.
Yeah, it's
I
late-
think rather than 70s Elton John or 60s Elton John.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's 90s Elton John, maybe even
yes,
noughties.
it's much later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But maybe not. But they sing it. They perform that song quite early on when he's still a kid, and it's like his whole family. And I think that one actually works quite well because the whole thing is couched in the terms of Elton John has just been searching for love his whole life. That's kind of, and because he was quite involved in this film, I think it seems to be that's what they're trying to say is with him trying to figure out his sexuality, trying to figure out what he's going to be, and he had all things that were said to him when he was a kid that fueled him.
Yeah, and the relationships with his mum and dad and his
Yeah.
nan,
Yeah.
how he has these sort of, they're not difficult relationships, well, some of them are, but how he's doesn't really quite know his place, does he?
Yeah,
His
yeah.
relationships with all of them are slightly strained
Yeah.
in different ways.
Yeah, and his and especially with his dad, and and everything that he does is kind of like him trying to find out who he is. So there were bits of it that I thought were going somewhere new. We're going to show you something different, and I guess with a musical biopic, it's probably the only musical I know where you see people liberally snorting cocaine, Scarface style.
Yeah.
So I think with that it is trying to go for, okay, look, we are being a bit more we're going to be a bit more truthful about the life this guy led, but after a while I feel like it almost becomes a bit Sunday afternoon moral story, like, ooh, don't do drugs, kids, because look how bad your life gets, which is a very very valid
yeah.
message, but it just feels a bit like, yeah, but we've kind of heard that before.
Yeah, in some ways I found, because Elton John was so closely involved in it, there's some glaring omissions, I thought, about in the story, and some of the relationships that were quite important, but he's had these feuds with people, hasn't he? It's quite famous that he does feud with people.
Yes,
and that
yes.
they're not even mentioned in any of the film at all.
Oh, like who?
Like people like The Who and Rod Stewart and other sort of singers who came up at the same time who they were pals with and collaborated with, but he had these feuds with them, so it doesn't have anything to do with them anymore.
Yeah,
so I just thought, apart from singing Pinball Wizard, there's no mention of the film Tommy or his acting.
Yeah.
And
I found that a bit weird because when they started singing Pinball Wizard, I was like, isn't this a Who song?
yeah, and it came from that whole
Quadrophenia
rock
thing.
opera.
Yeah,
and it was the whole the Who inspired it, and yet it's like you don't mention Tommy at all, or the fact that he acted in the film.
I actually find it really weird that no other musical act apart from Kiki D is mentioned in the entire film.
Yeah, it's just he's in a bubble on his own.
Yeah, it's like he's in a bubble, and I guess because the film, the way they get away with the musical thing is that it's essentially Elton John telling his story, so it's how he sees his life. So I can imagine that it would be like, I mean, this is a man who had a documentary made about him called Tantrums and Tiaras. So I can imagine that he sees his life as a very sort of like fantastical thing, and he paints it in all these big, wonderful, vivid colors. So I think it kind of works that way, but I think after a while it becomes a bit samey, and it just sort of like it gets watered down. And I would give it a 3. I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, for me it came down to, I think, essentially is how likable you find Elton John. And I personally find, for me, he lacks that likability factor. Mm-hmm. So after a while, I found it was interesting but not engaging. So again, I would give it a 3. I was like thinking, yeah, the music's okay, but I'm not a fan. The staging was good, the costumes were good, but again, I wasn't quite entirely convinced by Taron Egerton. I thought in some ways he's just a little bit too good looking.
Yeah, right.
And he's a little bit too likable.
That's the point. I mean, Elton
John, I don't think you say about the tiaras and the tantrums, and they have this little bit at the end which I was a bit weird, he's raised 450 million for AIDS charities, and he's happily married with all these and I'm thinking, yeah. It was, to me, it just didn't work, so...
Yeah, well, I mean, the bit at the end, I wasn't sure what they were going for with that. I really wasn't sure what they were going for with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought, so he's this lovely guy, and it was all happy ever after. Really not believing it. And the fact they didn't mention, they didn't involve Candle in the Wind or any of that sort of whole Diana debacle stuff. So to me, it didn't terribly work as a biopic or didn't terribly work well as a musical. Yeah, so I would give it a 3.
It's not something that I would rush out to watch. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen that Bo Rap yet either. I haven't really seen Bo Rap either. So
that works better.
That a little bit better.
I think that worked a lot better.
So. I'm like 3 stars. So I'm not going to rush to see it.
No.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think I gave them both 3 stars, but I would watch Rocketman again before I watched Bohemian Rhapsody.
You would watch Rocketman first, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because it's funny.
Sharon.
I would be the other way.
It's funny how you said that about Taron Egerton being too good looking. I actually thought they did a very good job, but there were some scenes in which I thought, hang on, is that actually Elton John? They did a really good job in making him look like Elton John. I think, and I think they did a really good job of making him look. He didn't look showbiz compared to, like, for instance, like Bernie Taupin, who is played by Jamie Bell in the film.
Yeah,
people actually refer to him as the good-looking one, and I think that they did a good job of showing like Elton John was not. He's not your typical pop star looking person.
Yeah, I think they got Taron, to put on a bit of weight because I think he looked a little bit, sort of chubby in places.
Yeah, and shave his head.
I think, but even so, his bone structure, I thought, you've got, your bone structure is still there. You've got that He's got that symmetry that I think just Elton John lacks. So to me, I wasn't entirely convinced.
Although there were some bits where I feel like Taron Egerton is in danger of becoming the greatest gurner in movies at the moment. There's one particular scene. I think you know the one I'm talking about. Outside the Royal Albert Hall when he's on the phone to his mum. And I'm like...
Yes.
I'm like, what's with all the gurning? What's with all... I mean, it's like... I think he pulls some of the tics that he pulls with when he played Eddie the Eagle. And I was like...
Yeah.
Why is your face doing that? And but Shaun, if you see it, I think it's going to be one of those. That's one of those scenes that Shaun will hate and talk about for years. If you see,
that'd be good. Cool.
But anyway,
right, 3 stars.
3 stars.
I'll give it 3.
Yeah, moving on. So that's
moving on.
Kicking off from cinema, and now we're going to go over to the world of TV or the world of Netflix and its friends. So we're going to talk about Game of Thrones season 8 because this is finally finished. It is still available on Now TV or Sky Atlantic or anything like that. And Game of Thrones, we've spoken a little bit about season 8 on previous things. Sharon, you said about how you boycotted the TV series because George
Yeah,
R.
I saw the final episode just to say I'd seen the final episode.
Okay, so you see the final episode.
Poor thing. You saw probably one of the worst episodes of the whole
Okay.
whatever 10 years it's been.
Okay. So Shaun, you kick off. What did you think of Game of Thrones season 8?
Oh man, I hated it. It was absolutely disgusting. What a disgusting. all that time I've invested in that to be given this nonsense final season. Absolutely disgusted with it. I was totally right from the very first, from the Battle of Winterfell. It was like these guys are supposed to be. They've been in battles. They're supposed to be know all the strategies, what to do that. They're fighting these,
whites.
Shall we say whites? Okay, and it's the most ridiculous battle plan ever. They got all their best troops out in front. It's just like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? It was absolutely. So you can imagine from that part when they sent the best troops, I'm like. So because that does it for me, Sharon.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
And then,
I will say this, that if this seems a bit vague, we're going to be trying as much as possible to not give spoilers.
not to give spoilers.
Not to give spoilers for anybody who has not seen it yet. But Shaun and I know we've spoken at length about the Battle of Winterfell. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so that's the ones out of the way, right? It's just you can. To me, even so, I'm really angry about this because to me, even the characters don't look like they're just going through the motions. It's like, oh, let's get this rushed. Let's just rush it. Let's come up with some good stuff. We spent all this time being really, really good. Let's just get it done. Let's get it out of the way.
One of the problems with this final season is it's just not been written by George R. Martin.
Wow.
I think he gave them an outline of how he intended to finish, but he hasn't finished the last 2 books. So as far as I'm concerned, anything after season 4 is just made up.
I know.
So I've said this before because I was following the books, and I believe that he's completely sold out the readers because there's no reason why he needed to hold back Winds of Winter for this long.
No.
And it could have been released, and then I think people would have had a better grounding for the final season because you see it's called the Song of Ice and Fire. So you see this final battle between the whites from the north, and then you've got the fire, the dragon, the Targaryens, the sort of dragon queen from the east meeting the forces of ice from the west and the north. So you think it should have been this epic clash of the 2 cultures. And yet it turns into this. To me, it just sort of fizzled all out at the end.
It was,
Okay.
It was dark. The episode was dark. You could see what was going on. It was all mixed up. It was just. It was a absolute.
Well, it's all about the sort of how they've built up these characters, and this final season is how it's been like a game of chess, hasn't it? They've all been put in their different positions, and then this is like the final confrontations between all of them.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways that some people are going to know that certain characters have died. I'm not going to say who.
Yeah.
But I think some of the deaths were, you think people have followed these characters for 9 or 10 years, and yet their death is over in 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, that's it then.
I'm just looking at rating reviews on the different episodes of this one, and it's just like the last episode.
It goes down and
like
down and down, doesn't it?
4.3. 4.3. So,
Okay.
Well, they deal with some of the deaths of some characters, I think, in such a casual way. You're thinking,
well, the bits
is
I
that
would
it?
like to see
Is that it?
Yeah,
the phenomenal. They could have
Come on
spent.
in, let
Sorry,
Tosin come
Tosin.
in.
They could have spent when you got the last episode. There's loads of major characters that you see for like
A
3
minute.
seconds at the
Yeah.
end, probably a little bit longer, but that's what it felt like.
Let Toes have. Wait, come on,
Sorry,
Toes.
go
Come on, Toes.
Go on, I'll shut up, mate.
Okay, cool. Well, okay, what I will say is I think my biggest criticism that I'll put towards it is that I think Shaun, you've alluded to it. It was quite rushed. That is the biggest thing I would look to. Like, there's battles in the final season in which I would look at it and I would say, if this had been in a previous season of Game of Thrones, that battle would have lasted 2 episodes. And it's like, for instance, if I think about the Battle of Winterfell, for instance, right? I think that there is a definite point in the Battle of Winterfell which I'm like, that's the end of the first episode, and now come back next week to see actually what happens. And there's a definite point I'm like, that should have been the end of the first episode. So my criticism about it is that it was a bit rushed. They did move things forward, like, and I think it's what Sharon said, at the point where they overtook the books, they started moving, and I don't know why they did it, because if it was that they were only being given a certain amount of money and then they had to, I can understand it, because I feel like, quite frankly, for me, from a storytelling perspective, I think every single character beat rings true. So I know there's a bit in in the second to last episode, so that's episode 5. There's a major development that happens in episode 5 with one of the major characters that people are like, oh my God, no, that's totally not like that character. That character wouldn't do that. And I actually totally I totally disagree. I think that character is that's what that character has been since day one. And it's only because there have been other characters around this particular character that have stopped them showing this. And once you got rid of all those other characters, that came out. And as far as I'm concerned, that was totally what that character has been wanting to do from the first moment. So I don't agree with everybody who's like, oh, no, that's totally out of character. I'm like, no, that is
I know what you mean, yes.
Yeah.
That character, yes.
Yeah.
You can see it building up from the beginning, yeah.
From the beginning.
It's always been there.
I'm like, that character's had a sadistic streak from day one. Some of the things that they've done in like, even in season 1, you look back and you go, oh my God, this is not somebody that you want to be, like, this is not somebody that you should be rooting for. But everybody was rooting for this person. And so I personally I liked it. I liked season 8. But my biggest
Tosin, I cannot believe it.
I like season 8. My biggest criticism of it is that it was rushed. Now, if they had taken, if it had been like double the length, for instance, and they'd taken more time to show because I've thought through it, and I've thought like, I think that there's a whole bunch of deleted scenes out there that link a whole bunch of different things together that tell you why X, Y, Z happens, but they've kind of like, they've kind of jumped from X to Z without giving you the Y. So it's so that's why I think that it feels rushed, it feels jumped, it feels like in some ways incomplete, but overall I liked it.
Well, you disappointed me there, Tosin. But I have to say, I mean, I wanted to see some more interaction between some of the characters. I do like the action, but there was some. It was just done all so conveniently. You know, I'd have seen certain characters confronting each other a little bit longer. I would have liked to have seen more about Yara, but they just all turn up at the end. And I'm like,
well, but the thing is,
straight from each episode, yeah.
But the thing is that if there was, I think it would have been even more convenient for these people to have longer confrontations. It's like for instance, like you know what you were saying about the deaths, Sharon, about long characters you've been going after for a long time, giving them a big death and all. And I think giving them a big death and making a big show of it, I feel like that would have been a betrayal of the Game of Thrones thing, which is that anybody can die at any time, and not everybody, not everybody gets like an honorable death.
Heroic death.
It's stupid, Tosin. It's stupid.
Even if we think about,
I can't give spoilers, but certain character would have just been boom. You know, and he wouldn't have. It's like, yeah. So I mean, absolutely stupid.
If I go back to season 1, and I'm going to give a spoiler for season 1 that everybody knows anyway. If you look at the death of Ned Stark, for instance, Stark, that is pretty unceremonious. It's pretty. When you think about all the deaths, they're pretty unceremonious. It's just because that now we've had 8 years. People feel like they deserve to have like a big death, but I think it's actually a very true to Westeros thing that
someone. Well, if that's the case, Tosin, and it could have been a quick one, there is someone that wouldn't have survived. I totally.
No, I agree with you. There's one particular character that in the Battle of Winterfell, I thought he was dead like 3 times.
And I'm not talking about Winterfell. I'm talking about in the last episode.
All right. Oh yeah.
I can't because it'd be a spoiler. But there's no way. There's no way he would survive.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, you do.
I think I know what you mean.
And that was like at the end. I was thinking, you come on, that is just awful script writing. And this series for me, I'm really, really sorry. I really, really don't like it. I've loved every other episode, every other season. I think they've been absolutely. This one fell down with a great big bang.
Okay, so how many stars would you give it, Shaun?
Oh, wow.
Final season.
I'd have to have a think of that one. I'd probably because right from the episodes, so you got, so let's have a look. So
bearing in mind that we're running out of time rapidly here.
Okay, I'm going to give it a 2.
Okay, cool. I'm going to
2-star.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 4 because
I'm angry about it. It's a pathetic load of twaddle.
I was really cross at when I got to the point of where it departed from the book so dramatically that I vowed that I couldn't watch it anymore. So I feel your pain, but I felt it 4 seasons ago. Like a lot of the book readers, it's like, you betrayed us a long time ago. Now you're finally knowing how we feel.
Yeah. I know. This is the funny thing about Game of Thrones. I think it's gone past the point of storytelling. It's gone almost to the point of, I think everybody has some sort of entitlement, and everybody has this kind of thing of how they feel this thing should go. There's people who think it should go with the books. There's people who think that person should be on the Iron Throne. There's people who think X, Y, Z. I am more of the, okay, tell me a story and let me see what happens. And with as I said, I think it was rushed. I think that there's a couple of places where they've turned over 2 pages at once, and because they're trying to get to the end, and I don't understand why they were trying to get to the end so quickly. But as I said, I liked it. I like the story that they told, and to be honest with you, in the fact that they ended it, and not everybody is happy with the ending of what happened or who ends up on the Iron Throne or what the different fates of the different characters are. I think that's just classic Game of Thrones. I think that's...
Yeah, but I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't interested in that. It's the stupid stuff that goes on in between all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can give a monkeys about who was on it. I just wanted things to be sort of realistic. You know what I mean?
If you'd read the books, it's all laid out in the first episode, in the first book, because a couple of the characters have these prophetic dreams, and he's always said it's all there. You've just got to decode it. And so a lot of people have been trying to decode the whole thing since the very beginning. Yeah. So if you read back the first book, you'll probably find it's all in there.
Yeah, I find that. Yeah, my wife's been watching a whole bunch of Game of Thrones videos, or Game of Thrones explainer videos, or history videos on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, and people are going deep into it. I don't really care that much. But
she should go to the website Westeros. It's all there. Westeros is the place to look. I used to be a member of Westeros until I gave up.
Okay, cool. You see, now I hope that she never hears this, because this Game of Thrones thing is bad enough already. But her Game of Thrones obsession is bad enough already. All right. Anyway, let's leave that. Let's leave that as it may, or to what it is. And now we're gonna go back to cinema, and we're gonna talk about Godzilla, King of Monsters. Shaun, the film that you have been talking about for a while, and you said that this is a film that you were looking. I think you said even probably more than Endgame, you were most looking forward to this year. Which I always think especially with you, I always think is a bad idea, because you're just setting yourself up for a fall.
You nailed it.
Yeah, just set yourself...
Totally a bad idea, man.
Yeah, set yourself up for a fall. And with this film, I remember telling you before you saw it, when you were talking about how much you were looking forward to it, I said, I think the humans are going to ruin this film, because they're going to keep trying to cut back to the humans and tell us about the humans, when all we want to see is giant kaiju fight. So... was I right? Were you wrong?
You more or less summed it up, Toes. You more or less summed it up, my boy.
Because I haven't seen this film yet. Yeah.
Major disappointment. I'm really, really sorry. I was so up for this movie.
I saw you 5 minutes before you went in, and all three of you who went in were hopping with excitement.
We were popping with excitement.
You were throbbing with it.
And when we come out, all except for one, we were grumbling. We were grumbling with not so much. Yeah, you're exactly right, Tosin. It is. Do you want to see a monster movie?
You want to see monsters.
You want to see monsters, yeah. And you do see monsters, and the actual when you do see the monsters, it's great. It's great. It's really, really good. Basically, they don't need much of the story. I suppose with the human story, they're trying to be like. I mean,
they're trying to give you something. They're trying to give you something to follow. It's like, oh yeah, identify with this human character, because imagine what would you do if, like, giant monsters came outside fighting in your city. This is the person who's supposed to represent you. And quite frankly, I'm like, look, we don't care.
and we don't care, and all the people look like they're just reading from cue cards. You know what I mean? The acting's just blooming awful.
Does this follow on from the first film?
Yeah,
do you have to
2014
know,
was absolutely...
Do you have to know what the first film was about? Because I can't really remember other than that Godzilla running around.
I've seen that about 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
I really, really love the 2014 Godzilla.
Yeah,
I love it. Godzilla. Yeah, I really, I thought that was class. It was just the right amount of time. You had the human element, you had the characters, all the stuff like that, and then you had the big fight. Well, and there's most of the... And Tosin.
Are you going to cry? Are you going to cry?
No, I'm going to say that there are some things in this. There are some things in this that I am like, like how I moaned about War for Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
And I was saying all the ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
There is ridiculous stuff, and there is ridiculous cliches, and there are bits where about 4 times where you think, something's going to happen, and then something else happens, and you think, you absolutely know, you're thinking, oh no, why is this? And it's pathetic. It is the human. I've had a bad time this week, haven't I? The acting's awful. The acting's awful, and when there is a fight, when there's a lovely, lovely action scene, why are they keep cutting to the human characters?
Yep.
You see, like. 5-6 seconds of like a clash of them, and then it goes to his other one going, and all calling out and all being all soppy and all that, and everything. There's so many things in that where, that's convenient, isn't it? Look at that. Someone's turned up at just the right time. It just so happens you have to be there at this right time, and this person here, and all those people have gone out the room, so this thing can happen. You know what I mean? And it's just like absolutely lazy, pathetic, horrid. But the monster scenes are. They're pretty cool. The kaijus are pretty cool, and but I just wanted to see more of it, basically. So
if you got the edited version, you could do what I do sometimes when I watch a program I don't really like. I fast forward on like double speed, and then I stop it when I want to hear what they're saying.
It. And you've got pathetic people wandering around. There should be, like let's just say in some things it's like, how on earth would you survive that? You know what I mean? You just happen to be lucky enough in the right place.
That falling boulder just missed you by an inch.
And all the major characters, nothing really happens to them, except one who decides he's going to save the world. But anyway, it is amazing. This is like huge disappointment. I was even ready to go see this at IMAX.
Oh, good Lord, no, man. Why would you?
that is. I'm not even going to bother.
Okay.
I'm not even going to bother.
All right. Okay, sure. Well done for getting through that. I actually thought you were going to get to the point where you get so livid that you stop making full sentences.
I was livid. It was like in War for Planet of the Apes. I started to have to sit in my seat and cross my legs and you know what I mean? Get all that.
Just squirming all over the place.
I even started, I think at one time, I said, that is pathetic. That is, I think I even got that angry about it. You know what I mean? I was like hopping in the seat.
Heckling the screen.
Heckling the screen, yeah.
Okay. All right. So now this is the first time that so Godzilla has left Japanese screens and come into Hollywood before, and but this is the first time that I think King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan show up in a sort of Western film. Is this okay? Forgetting about all the human stuff, because I already predicted that was going to ruin the film and that was just going to be rubbish. Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah, when they show up on screen, do they do them justice?
Ghidorah, I like Ghidorah.
Yep.
I don't think they did quite as good a job on Rodan.
Yep.
Mothra's beautiful. Yeah, Mothra's beautiful. Godzilla's cool. And a couple of the other ones that you sort of just pop up, just play like bit parts, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's not half as good as the
2014
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Does this tie in with Skull Island? Is it part of the same?
Yeah. And that's referenced to a lot through the movie.
Oh, okay.
That's referenced to them a lot. I mean, I like the idea of Monarch, and I do like all that ideas, but I mean, in this, you've got the people explaining stuff, and everything's all convenient for them. You know what I mean? They just happen to have the right stuff will come up. Oh look, that's just miraculously appeared just the right time.
Just when I need
I'll tell you what.
Those people have arrived.
Like
you know,
Batman with his utility belt. It just happens to have the right thing on it.
There's a bit of threat and violence. Oh, something conveniently. Oh, happens. Oh, yeah, jolly good. Jolly good, very nice, nice and convenient.
Sean, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
No, it's all right, mate. I know, I do appreciate that, Tosin. I'm sorry too, mate. I am, because I was really up for this one. This was going to be my film of the year.
Yeah,
it's been my dad.
Yeah, honestly, I just thought. I mean, once I saw the last trailer, and I thought they're putting way too much story into this thing. Hang on, I recognize that guy. I've recognized quite a few. I've recognized about 10 actors in this trailer. This is going to be bad because they're going to want to give them all screen time, and it's not going to be. So, do you think you're going to come back for Kong versus Godzilla?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I should. I mean, I still. I mean, I really liked Skull Island. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, what else would you want? Like a Vietnam era An apocalypse, a monster
Running,
apocalypse
screaming,
now.
big monsters. Yeah.
So what's not to like about that?
Okay, Skull Island. I thought the same. I was like, every time Kong was on screen, majestic, but they kept cutting back to the humans,
seriously.
and I didn't care about the humans. So
That's it. You've got no investment in the characters in the film at all. They're all like awful.
Yeah,
They should have all been crushed.
The thing is, like, it's not like the original King Kong where they give you a reason for the humans to be there, like Fay Ray and the relationship between Fay Ray or whoever plays that character in any of the subsequent versions and Kong is wonderful and it gives you a reason. But in a Godzilla movie, the humans are rubbish. So anyway, how many stars would you give that?
Well, I can't be too harsh. I mean, if all the human bits was cut out and you had the clash of the Titans, which is what they called anyway, the most I'm going to give it is a 3. I've got to give it a 3 just purely because for the monsters. But
okay, cool.
That could all be cut out. Cut all the human stuff out and let's just see a big fight.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, Rampage. I loved Rampage. Rampage was great.
Yeah. Actually, because in this film, right? In this film, they keep talking about how in all the build up to it, they're talking about how this is their world. They used to be in this world before we showed up. So all these monsters have been around before humans actually showed up on the Earth. And I actually want to see a film set then, before humans showed up, and what these monsters were getting up to and how they were fighting. That's the film I want to see. I don't care about humans coming in and messing things up. But anyway, never mind. Let's move on to back to Netflix because we're running out because you guys have to get to a film quiz, right?
Yeah,
you guys have to get to film quiz and we have 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes to talk about 3 films.
Okay.
So we're gonna go back to
cracking.
Netflix and Sharon, Revolt.
Yes, this is. It won't take me long to review. This is your basic.
This is a good week.
An alien invasion film set in sort of somewhere in Africa. I believe it's Kenya, but it's a US soldier wakes up having been injured in a battle with this sort of invading alien forces, and he wakes up locked in a cell next to a French doctor, and they're under attack by these big robotic creaturey things that are the vanguard of an alien invasion, and they have to avoid these sort of militia type people who are after their own ends. And it's a bit of a confusing mess. A lot of fighting, shouting, screaming, shooting, robots stamping around, and a forgettable ending. So I would say it was okay.
Cool. Is there a lot, what's the action like? Is it like good action or is it just like a bit?
It was a bit dumb.
Oh, right.
And there was this. He's got sort of like tattoos. He doesn't understand what the tattoo means, and then he like sees a sign. It's like, oh, it's a sign. Oh, and it's my tattoo, and and it's the answer to everything. And then to me, I was just thinking, it's largely forgettable. I mean, in the weeks that I've seen it, I'm trying to think, how did it end?
I did look at it.
It's only been a week.
I did actually. That was one of the ones that I was sort of looked at, and I thought, I'm not sure if I'm gonna.
So I don't mind a bit of, sort of, because I think Battle Los Angeles, even though it was panned when it first came out, is actually a watchable film. It's actually got something going for it. And I thought, well, if it's a Battle Los Angeles, but Battle, Kenya, Battle, wherever, I'll give it a go. Yeah. So I was prepared to give it the benefit of the doubt, and it was a bit rubbish, really.
So sorry, I'm still laughing about. I think that's my favorite review I've ever heard. It's like I'll say it was good. I think that's still my favorite review of anything I've ever heard, Sharon. That's awesome. So okay, but so with this,
we don't give half points, do we?
No. Oh wow. Okay. So this is something that I looked at, right? When you spoke about it and you talk about it being in Kenya, I was actually thinking like, oh, maybe that it was like, a Kenyan point of view of an alien invasion. But I'm looking at the trailer now, I'm realizing that this guy is the main character in this thing is white.
And the main lady in it is white.
Okay.
They do meet sort of, yeah.
Yeah, that's just sort of like taking this down a couple of pegs in my head because I feel like I know what this film is going to be. the Kenyan characters are just going to be like in the background there to is even in the just to be incinerated by aliens, while it's really all about this white guy in the middle of Africa.
Yeah, they appear, you get invested in them, and then they get killed or something.
Yeah.
They disappear.
Yeah.
They're not. Yeah. So I would say, can I be generous and give it a 2?
Oh, generous and give it a 2.
Okay.
That's
No, wait, do you want to be generous? It's up to you. If you don't want to be generous and you want to be truthful, go.
I'll give it a 2 because it
tries.
There is a beginning, a middle, and an end. So hey, it does its job in a really tedious, dragged out sort of way.
Tedious.
So I'd give it a 2.
I don't think.
A 2.
Oh, good. I don't think I've ever heard you sound as unenthusiastic about anything. I don't. Honestly, this is. I'm even talking about somebody dragging you along to see an animated movie. You sound way more enthusiastic, way less enthusiastic than. Oh my good lord, this is bad. But I was hoping that it was going to be a bit like you know how Shaun, when you saw the Wandering Earth, and it was, and I was like, well, this is the Chinese people saying, well, we too can make a mediocre middle of the road movie, only that this time we're going to put Chinese people in the center of it. And when you started speaking about Revolt, I was hoping that this was going to be like, well, we're going to make a Kenyan movie.
No.
It's going to be mediocre. We're going to put Kenyan people in the center of it. But no, it's same old.
I would say watch the trailer because probably the best bits are in the trailer. And then you can save yourself an hour and a half.
I'm looking, you know those sort of silent trailers that Netflix plays before you actually see a film?
Yeah.
I'm looking at one of those now, and it looks like a sci-fi movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like a sci-fi channel, like one of those cheap knockoff sci-fi channel movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. They do the movies. It looks like CGI, you know, with like the explosions. You can actually tell, like,
that was in a computer.
Let's put a donk on it.
Yeah. So I would. Yes, I don't need to spend much longer on this. It's had enough of my time, this film. Hey. So I would give it a yes. I'll be generous and give it a 2.
Oh, although they have a truck in the back that has "You'll Never Walk Alone" written on the back of it, so maybe a Liverpool fan made this film. But never mind.
Might be, they just could start singing their way into oblivion. But yes, that's that one done, and I never think of that film ever again.
Okay. All right. Okay, now we're going to talk about Booksmart. As I said, I'm going to speak to Peter Jenkins, friend of the show, and we're going to go a bit more in-depth into Booksmart. So I'm not going to say that much now about it. But this is a film that I think it's getting a lot of buzz because a comedy, and this film is, in a way, it's kind of like, did you ever see a film called Superbad?
No.
I've not seen it, no.
You haven't seen Superbad? So
I haven't seen Superbad, but that's got all like the Seth Rogen and all those lines.
I think so.
Yeah, it does. It's Jonah Hill and Michael Cera, the main characters. It has Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and it's a place where it's called McLovin. And I feel like this film has a lot of similarities to Superbad. It's like at the end of high school. It's getting towards the end of high school, and people are trying to go to a party. Only that this time around, it's about 2 girls. I guess you could still call them girls, young women, whatever it is you want to call them. They're finishing high school, so they're probably around about 18. And it's all about them realizing that they've gone through their entire high school thing and nobody realizing that they're fun because they've all been about, we've got to get the good grades, got to get into Ivy League schools, all that kind of stuff. And then they find out that everybody else who went and partied and did all this stuff got into the exact same schools that they did anyway. So they're like, what? So what did we sacrifice for this whole 4 years? And but I think it has, to me, I feel that there was at some point when this one was being developed, somebody sat in a room and went, what if we turned the 2 main characters of Superbad into women? What would that be like? I'm dead certain that happened, and there was a point at which this film got developed into that. It has loftier ideas on its mind, like the way it portrays as women. And nowadays, I mean, ever since the Me Too movement, whenever a film comes out and it has a woman in the lead or a couple of women in the lead, it's never really just about the film. It's not about the story they're trying to tell you. It's about the wider conversation, and it's about where we are in the world right now. It's about the place of women and how women are seen and all that kind of stuff. And so I think a lot of the buzz around this film is the fact that, oh my God, we've got women in the lead roles. Yay! We're looking at the point of view from the point of view of a young woman. and it's a good film. I'll give it a good film. I don't think it is as great as everybody's raving about it. But then again, Peter said that this is one of the biggest films, one of his best films of the year. So I'm gonna have a good conversation with him about it and see why he thinks it's so good. Because
I've made a point that I want to see this one, so
Yeah.
I'll go and see this one.
Yeah,
and then I can give you my thoughts.
Yeah,
maybe I'll go see it with Sharon next week. Do you fancy going to see it next week?
I don't know if it appeals to me, to be honest.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough.
I think it's.
But I don't want to shoot you down. But it's I'm one of these. I went to see Rocketman. I didn't want to see that, and it wasn't that bad. So I might be prepared to.
No, the thing is, I would still give it a 4 out of 5. I'll still give it a 4 out of 5.
I'm still looking at some reviews, and there's so many. I mean, I know you said it was good, but it looks like the majority of them. There's a 5, a 6, a 1, a 2. Don't waste your money.
Or out of 10.
So, awful, worst film of the summer.
No, this is what
super bad for the new generation.
You see,
I kind of feel sorry for the new generation.
Okay, you see, Sean, this is the thing. If you're looking at general public reviews, I have stopped looking at those whenever there's a film.
Yeah, well, I don't normally. I don't. That's what I mean. I was with the Godzilla. I just said it was like a moratorium, and I didn't even read any reviews. I never do before I see a film.
Yeah,
so, but I have with this one. So
yeah, but then it's like in the my problem is, especially when a film has women in the lead role, there's a whole bunch of, quite frankly, I think idiots out there who just decide to hate the fact that it has put women in the spotlight. So when it comes to and I've seen all sorts of stuff we had with all sorts of films, and it's on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So I tend to ignore all those sort of things. I think this is the kind of film where I would go more with what the critics say than what random person in the street says, because they usually they'll tell you it's bad and they hate it, but they can't tell you why. So I don't think it's as great as everybody's talking about. I think it is quite funny. I think it is.
Well, you've given it 4 stars, so you must rate it quite high.
I rated high with reservations, if you get what I mean.
Okay.
You know how it is when you see a film and you watch a film and you go, okay, yeah, I can see that's a good film. I can see that's a good film. I can see what they're going for. Not everything works for me, but it's. I mean, if we were allowed to give half points, I'll probably say a 3.5.
Okay.
I was probably say that because I don't think it's just average good. I think it's better than that. I think that there's some angles that it brings to it that are better, but I don't think it's. But anyway, I'll give it 4. I'll chat more about that with Pete.
All right.
Hello, Pete.
Yo. Yeah, that's a bit better, isn't it?
Yeah, that is better. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, doing well. How are you keeping up with the film watching world and all that?
Yeah, we've been a few times. Obviously, we saw Detective Pikachu the other day.
I've have that on my list. I was like, that fell through a crack, and I want to see that before it leaves cinemas.
Yeah, that's it. I think you probably might have to go and see it this week, because obviously where it's still half term, it's still on.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think next week it'll probably disappear. I expect, with Aladdin probably sort of taking over its slot.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's proper sort of kids Saturday afternoon stuff.
And you know what? I sometimes think that, well, when I look back on my childhood and I look at some of the kids' stuff, and I think that was some of the best written stuff I ever watched.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that this can sort of tap into that, because I remember the original Pokemon cartoon, and I actually thought, you know what, that isn't half bad. It really, really is. It's one of the few shows that I watched when I thought, this actually gets close to what I used to watch when I was a kid.
I was more into Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, yes.
Remember that, Yu-Gi-Oh!
I remember them. I always thought, well, the thing is, I was never really into any one of them, but I found out about Yu-Gi-Oh! After finding out about Pokemon, and I thought it was I was like, isn't this just a Pokemon ripoff?
Yeah, exactly. But it's just one of those shows, weirdly enough. I just used to watch on a Saturday morning.
Yes.
Just used to be on. I used to watch it and kind of got into it a bit. It's kind of weird.
And it just made everything seem like it was all right with the world.
Yeah, exactly. It was very non-offensive, and you know what I mean, and everyone sort of like got along with each other in the end and everything. So it was very safe.
Yeah. All right, cool. But we are calling because you are a friend of the show. You are a friend of Netflix or Cinema. you have shown up on at least one of our previous shows when we recorded in the cinema, when we did like a sort
Yeah.
of live show and all that. And this is because I think a couple of weeks ago we reviewed eighth grade, and we put up something about eighth grade, and I think we're talking about how
Oh
difficult
yeah,
it was to.
yeah.
And you mentioned on that you said, "Oh, eighth grade is a brilliant film," and you said eighth grade
Yeah.
and Booksmart are some of probably some of your best films of this year.
Yeah, definitely, and Long Shot as well.
Yes,
I mean,
and Long
it's been
Shot.
a great
Yes.
sort of few weeks for comedy in general, really.
Yep. And so you said that, and so I thought, okay, cool. Let's get somebody, because I know Booksmart at the moment is having one of those is one of those films that's just getting rave reviews across the board, and everybody's like, oh my god, you gotta go see this, you gotta go see this. And then because you're someone I know who's actually seen it, I guess you saw a preview screening or something like that.
Yeah, they had an unlimited screening a few weeks back and everything, and since then I've been telling everyone to go and see it.
Okay, all right, cool. So now, I'm funny because I wanted to get you to come in and just sort of tell us, okay, Booksmart. Why for you is Booksmart so good? Because we've on the regular show we've said a little bit. I've given it a little bit of a synopsis about the film, but for you, why do you think it's so good?
You know what? It really reminded me of the films that I sort of grew up watching.
Okay.
You know, like Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller, all the sort of John Hughesy type films and everything. And then obviously, the one film it's been compared with more than anything is Superbad. It's like they're calling it sort of Superbad for girls, but it's so much more than that, because they don't rag on anyone or anything like that. It's just that everyone has their place in the film. It's like really LGBT friendly and everything. And it's got a bit of everything in. It's got really gross out humor, and some of it, I mean, they were in the cinema near enough crying, because it's so hilarious. But then it's got some quite nuanced humor and all these different things, and then really gross out stuff. It has a bit of everything, and it just really took me back to my sort of teenage years and everything. Watching type of movies.
All right, okay, it's because I think I'm less raving and about it, like how everybody, it seems like the whole country, like everyone's like, oh my god, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. I'm less I'm less like that on it, but so that's why I really want to have a chat with you, because I wanted to say, okay, tell me if there's something that I'm missing here, because right from the word go, when the film was announced and when I saw the first trailer, I did think this kind of looks like Superbad, but with females in the lead role. And I agree with you that it is a little bit more like that, like, because I can't remember Superbad that well, but I think their main effort, or their main driving force, is that they want to go to a party, get drunk, and meet girls.
Yeah.
If I remember, that is their main thing before they leave high school.
Yeah, pretty much.
But in this one, I think that the motivation is as you said, is more nuanced. Is the fact that they've worked really, really hard to get into all these top universities, these Ivy League universities, and they find out that all the people who partied and didn't deny themselves all these things got into the same universities anyway. And so they're like, what? And so they're pretty much trying to cram all the fun that they should have been having over all these years into one night before they graduate.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't know how to do it.
They
spent sort of 4 years at high school, sort of, heading the books and everything while everyone else was doing their thing.
Yeah.
So, night, like you said, trying to cram everything, but they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because they've spent so much time with each other that, like they kind of forget there's other people out there. There's, what do we do when we go to this party? How do we interact with people? What's going on, sort of thing,
Yeah.
And like I said, I just, it's a classic sort of coming of age comedy.
Yep.
And you don't get them so much. Well, obviously, like eighth grade, it is a coming of age comedy, all right, for a sort of like bit of a younger sort of set sort of thing there, because
like
obviously she's only sort of like 14.
Yeah.
These kids are sort of high school, just got off to college. So they're sort of like 17 sort of thing.
Yep.
18. So they can talk about it's a little bit, quite a bit more adult than eighth grade. Actually, say a lot more adult than eighth grade.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so okay, there's a couple of things I want to run by you about this film.
Yeah.
That it kind of got me, because you said talked about it being LGBT, I guess Q, And now I've started seeing that sometimes people have been putting LGBTQI, and I do not know what the I stands for. But
I don't know.
yeah, I don't have a clue what the I stands for. And
Yeah.
it's friendly, but it seems like almost that they were making this film to begin with. I feel like they were pushing it very hard in that direction. Like we know the first time when you get introduced to the high school. So you first of all you meet the girls, Molly and Amy, and then they go to school on the final day of school before their graduation, and you get introduced to like the whole high school thing. You get to see the jocks, you get to see the drama kids, you
Yeah.
get to see all that kind of stuff. And there was a point at which I was actually watching the film going, hang on a second, is anybody in this film normal? Before I realized that was a very, very bad choice of words. And,
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying. I
yeah,
know what you're saying, but
it's like every single character in the film has a thing. Every single character in this
quirk,
school
yeah.
has a quirk or has a thing to them,
Yeah.
and it seems as if they were taking like like somebody can't just be black. They've got to be black, gay, and a theater person. Someone just can't be like someone just can't be a jock. They've got to be a jock, and they've got to be the class president and have like different layers to them. And it felt like it was, in some ways, it was almost like trying to be a reaction to a lot of the high school movies that you've seen in the past, where it's like okay, we're not going to give you a character that's just like your stereotype. We're not going to give you an archetype. And they were trying really, really hard to make sure that you had characters that had different things going on. But it just kind of felt like, for me, that bit of it, I was like, hang on a second, this feels like a bit like a fantasy land. Where is the person who's just getting the head and not trying to get on with it?
Well, I don't know about you, Tosin, but I haven't been to school for over 25 years. So who's to say that high school in America isn't like that now anyway?
Oh, okay, good point.
Maybe that's how it is now, So everyone's a little bit different. Everyone expresses themselves a little bit more than they used to. Things like that. Obviously, with the high school shootings and stuff like that, maybe a little bit people are more tolerant about other people. So then those other people, instead of having to suppress everything, they can actually feel like they can be more themselves. And by that, and it makes it, a little bit more diverse and everything. But I thought that was one of the cool things about the film.
Okay.
Is that because you had quite a lot of diverse, different characters, they all had their own quirks, so a bit weird, a bit strange and everything, it actually made the two lead characters in it more normal.
Yes.
But they weren't normal because
even though
they
they're
were
not
actually
normal.
the weird characters, because they weren't the people that were doing all this crazy stuff and everything. But actually, they were the outsiders in all of it.
Yeah.
Even though they were pretty, the kind of sort of straight people, if pardon the pun sort of thing.
Yeah.
They were kind of the straight people in the film.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked. I thought that actually worked really well, because they're all of a sudden like, oh, hold on, we're the weird kids now.
Mm.
We're trying to interact with all these people that we've been saying a bunch of weirdos, and we don't really want to be involved with for like the last 4 years. We just want to concentrate what we're doing.
Yeah.
But actually, we're the weirdos.
Yeah, I guess.
So I think that played out quite well, I think.
Well, I guess actually, now that you mentioned it, because I think it's something that played up in 8th grade as well, how everybody is essentially in high school, everybody's trying to brand themselves. And everybody's trying to sort of like say, this is who I am. I'm the person that does this, the other person who does that. And I guess that kind of makes sense. I haven't hung out with teenagers for a while, so things might have changed. But I guess. But
I think it's the sort of film, though, I think you could watch maybe 2, 3, 4 times. I think you'd still laugh at all the really gross out funny bits, but I think you'd find extra layers within the film as you watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously when you first watch it, obviously you kind of get a bit overwhelmed, I think, by all the humour and the weirdness and the quirkiness and everything. But I think if you watch it again, and obviously I'm kind of desperate to watch it again, to be honest with you, you probably get a little bit more out of it.
Yeah. Well, then I guess I should actually, because I was the person who didn't have any fun and then just tried to work really hard and get into all that kind of stuff. I never went to a party when I was in high school. So so I'm guessing I should identify with it a little bit more. But Okay. So now, at the moment, there's a lot of people that because you mentioned how it's a great year for comedy. You mentioned Eighth Grade. You mentioned Long Shot. You mentioned Booksmart. And one thing, a very superficial thing that links all these films is that the lead characters are all female. And
Oh yeah,
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 yeah, and something that we've been talking about is that there seems to be, ever since the Me Too thing, all of a sudden you're seeing a lot more films that female led.
yeah,
And
yeah. Of course, of course.
yeah, and there seems to be and unfortunately a very very predictable backlash to this on social media, and a whole bunch of people who had decided to hate these films, seemingly seemingly on the point of view that these are women
Yeah,
in it. But you're a man, obviously. You're a man who you find yourself identifying
yeah.
a lot with this film.
Last time I checked in the mirror.
Last time you checked, I think that's what your wife keeps telling you.
Yeah.
Say hi to her, by the way. I'm a big fan. And it's so yeah, and you found something to identify in it. But was there, obviously we spoke about Superbad, and unfortunately the comparison with Superbad is very very, I think it's quite there, it's quite obvious, especially because the
Yeah, yeah,
person who plays Molly, Beanie Feldstein, is Jonah
yeah.
Hill's sister.
Yeah, sister, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you see that as well.
You see
can
it.
actually see it when you watch it.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, what's she been in before? I must have seen her in something else. And I actually looked her up afterwards. I hadn't seen her in anything. But then when it came up as Jonah Hill's sister, I'm right.
Yeah, yeah.
Total sense now where the familiarity comes from, because her mannerisms and the way she talks and everything is very, very similar. It's kind of weird.
There's even certain angles from which you look at the face and you see Jonah Hill. You
can see in the eyes,
Yeah,
around the eyes and stuff.
Yes, yes, you can see the resemblance with Jonah Hill. So it is. I saw her in Lady Bird. She was good in Lady Bird, but it's almost as if this film was taking her character in Lady Bird and pushing her to the center, as opposed to being the best friend. And so from this, was there anything that you saw on this film that you thought, oh, I haven't seen that before? Because that's kind of like, obviously it's directed by Olivia Wilde, and it's like a feminine take on the high school thing. Or did you just think, or did it bring anything new to you, is what I'm trying to ask, if that makes any sense.
From my point of view, I don't really go into any film and go in with any sort of prejudice or anything like that. I love films, so every film has its place. Every genre has its place.
Yep.
There's certain genres I'm not as keen on as others. You know what I mean? I always remember watching sort of Barry Norman back in the day on film, whatever it was back in the day.
Yeah.
And he used to hate horror films. As a review, he hated horror films. So when you've got a horror film on there that was actually a really great horror film, he'd just diss it because he doesn't like horror films, rather than taking it as it is.
Yeah.
And I'm very much a sort of person that will take each film as it comes. So it doesn't bother me so much that, hey, it's an all-women thing, it's directed by a woman, written by women and everything. It doesn't matter. If it's a good film, it's a good film. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me one little bit, sort of thing. So, for me, like I said, it kind of like gave a really good sort of diverse in the characters and everything. All right, you got guys, girls, gays, all sorts in it, So, that's just probably life these days, So just let it roll over you and go with it,
Yeah. I mean, I think there are. I agree with you on that. Like, they are. But there's this whole thing when you go into psychology of it, and people throw bandy award rounds like the male gaze and all that kind of stuff. And there are things where I feel like this comes from a different angle that I don't think I've met before. Like, I love the scene where they go into a car and they try and get information out of the car, the driver of the car.
Yeah, with the hair mask.
Yeah, with the hair masks. With the hair mask.
So funny.
I think that scene is actually really, really funny because it's just kind of like, it's sort of like the offbeat way it goes on about the dangers of living in somewhere like Los Angeles nowadays. I actually really, really love the way it goes about that. And there's all these sort of little bits that go off. There's a little bit with that character that they do later on in the film that I was like, that kind of lessens it a bit for me. But generally speaking, I mean, I gave the film 4 stars. I mean, as I said, I'm not as euphoric or as evangelical about the film as, like, let's say maybe you are. But I did think it was a good film. But how many stars would you give it?
5 stars all the way. Comedy is probably one of the most difficult genres
Yep.
you can write, make, and direct and act in and everything like that, because you watch some comedies that miss the mark so badly that they're horrendous.
Yeah.
You'll have other comedies that are just really bland, where it's just and a lot of American comedies are like this, where it's basically just a one joke
Yep.
that really isn't a 15-minute SNL sketch that they go for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it's just so boring. But then every now and then you will get a film that is genuinely funny. And I don't know how these guys write these films. To be able to make a film that's intentionally funny from minute 1 all the way through to like hour and a half, hour 40, I think is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's just so good.
Yeah.
And like I said, I felt the same with Long Shot. Not as much as Booksmart. I love Long Shot.
I did.
So
I really like Long Shot. Yeah, I thought Long Shot was really good.
I like Seth Rogen. Love Charlize Theron. You know what I mean? And that's a film that shouldn't have worked, but it just did, because the leads are just so likable and the writing was so good that you believed everything that actually happened in that film.
Yeah.
Whereas Booksmart, you could argue, is maybe a little bit more unbelievable, but I think that's kind of part of its charm.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are a little bit of there's a few bits of it where like there's a teacher character in Booksmart, and I think like what they do with the teacher character is very kind of like, it feels like one of those SNL improvisational sketches that doesn't really go anywhere. But generally speaking, I think it is a well put together film, and it's really, really impressive that it's the first time director.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? She'll have a glittering, directorial career if she can sort of go on from this sort of thing, because I think the film showed a lot of flair, in the way it was made, the directing, everything about it, I think was really, really spot on, really sharp.
All right, cool. Well, Pete, thanks so much for coming on the show again.
No worries, dude.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem. Say hi to Holly for me.
Will do. I will do. All right, mate. You take it easy, all right?
Yeah, say to you, man. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
You guys go see it and tell me next week, and then we move back to Netflix and we talk about the domestics. So Shaun, tell us about the domestics.
Domestics, yeah. The domestics. Okay. This is 2018 Netflix. I think it's a Netflix original.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was. And it's just basically this sort of a post-apocalyptic world, and there's this husband and wife, people that there's like gangs form up, so it's a bit like Mad Max,
Okay.
like there's gangs, and they've all got different names, they have different names, these gangs, but there's one, the domestics are people that want life to be the same as it was already, so they're just sort of normal people.
Yeah.
And this is a story about a couple that decide, they're obviously having their problems, but they decide they're got to take a road trip because they want to go and see some other relatives, so obviously you've got like this road movie, and they have to meet up with all these gangs that want to capture them and kill them and do nasty things to them and all that. So it's basically a road movie cross between definitely Mad Maxy style, because some of the gangs have got like stags' heads and other ones have got like masks. They're all masked up and stuff like that. And they all turn up at the right times. And
it makes you wonder how they have the time to be so creative when they're in an apocalypse.
It really does, So anyway, they got this, and they get into certain situations in different areas, and they get out of situations, different areas, and this goes, and there's a couple of surprises and a couple of shocks and twists and turns around the way. So, yeah, a bit like The Warriors. I thought it was going to be...
I was thinking The Warriors when you started talking about it. When you talk about all the different gangs and people having to get across from one place to another.
Yeah, it's sort of I would say it's a cross between Mad Max and The Warriors. So if you could combine the two,
yeah.
But
where they have to travel from territory to territory.
It's just traveling across country, really. So, but the gangs have sort of taken over,
Yeah, they have their with Warriors. As they travel across New York, they enter the gang turf, don't they?
Yeah.
And they meet these different gangs.
But this was no Warriors.
No Warriors.
This is no Warriors. I've had a real bad week, this week. I've been let down on all fronts. I suppose just because I've had some good weeks. So I guess that the whole thing is probably
that's a shame, because That's a shame because this actually has a good cast. It's got Kate Bosworth.
Yeah, no, it's got a great cast. I'm not saying it's horrendously, horrendous. It's just no Warriors or no Mad Max really.
All right.
So it's okay. I mean, I watched it all the way to a start, so I didn't get I didn't get too angry in it. I didn't get angry.
You didn't feel the need to fast forward it for 10 minutes or so.
So I mean, there was it was a little bit of action, but there was nothing that I could really say. I mean, there was a lot of luck involved, obviously, but there wasn't anything that I would think, well, that's bloody stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in some things, like in Godzilla, where what? That's stupid. Game of Thrones. What? That's stupid.
Yeah.
What? So yeah. So I mean, I suppose to be fair, it wasn't. I didn't hate it. I didn't. So it's pretty average. So I suppose probably a 3-star on this one.
All right,
Probably
cool.
Give it a 3
That's
star.
really
3-star.
okay.
3-star. All right, cool. Somehow we've managed to rush through those and get this just on time. And we just about have enough time left to tell you that this week, the winner in what I think we've all decided was not. This wasn't a vintage week. This wasn't a great week.
No.
This wasn't a great week. I think Shaun, you you had issues with almost everything you saw.
I did this week. Yeah, sorts.
I
think it was a total disappointment.
Actually, our also rans were better than
I know,
our
I know.
That's right.
the main features.
That's what I was just about to say. The also rans that we mentioned at the beginning of the show were better than the main things that we put forward. So make of that what you
the
will.
B reel was like, hey, beat the A reel.
Maybe we just like to complain about stuff. So we decided, you know
possibly.
what? I'm going to put the stuff that I'm going to, or maybe actually, I think we're performing a public service here. We're telling people the things to not waste their time with. So,
Yeah.
so from the official things, not including our also rans, the winner this week is. What do you guys think it is? What do you guys think it is?
Cinema?
What do you guys?
I think it's probably Netflix.
Oh.
Oh, the winner this week is Cinema.
A cinema, is it?
Yeah,
Wow,
by
Wow, must be that big. It's that big 4-star for that.
I think it's probably the
girl
4-star. It's the 4-star I gave Booksmart, but even if I gave it a 3, Cinema would still have come out ahead.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh well, that's good. That's good news. Anyway,
Yeah.
good news. That's always good. It's difficult, isn't it? It's good to but I mean, I'm pleased with cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to try probably watch more Netflix exclusives and maybe some series. Try and catch up with some series because I do seem to like those, and they're easy to sort of watch for half an hour. If they're only on for half an hour, so you can watch one and you can always go back to them. So as I say the
I normally have to sort of clear an evening in syndicated. So I will watch a Netflix film because I tend to be a bit. I record a lot of stuff to watch. I'm rarely in, so I tend to record everything to watch off the television. So I sometimes sit down and think, okay, I better catch up on my television watching.
Yeah.
So I'll have to get some Netflix watching in.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Shaun. Okay,
Go.
in addition to we said we're going to try and watch Ali's wedding for next week.
Yes, Ali's wedding.
Because they got in touch with us on Twitter, so we're going to try and watch that. But also
We'll try and watch that. Yeah.
But Shaun, there's a film called The Bad Batch on Netflix.
Oh right.
Which was
Is there? Yeah.
Yeah, and this film was raved about. It was like on the blacklist and all that kind of stuff. And I know that it was one of those films that got bashed about and was supposed to be released in cinemas, and it kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Then it eventually showed up on Netflix, and I think it might be up your alley.
All right. Okay.
It's very.
Okay, I might try and check that one out. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Yeah, it's very Mad Max influenced. Very sort of like grindhousey. It's very sort of like you can see the 70s influence on the film just by looking at the trailer. But I think it could be up your alley. And if it's absolutely terrible, I apologize in advance. So,
right, okay.
If I'm just sending you to go watch another Godzilla, King of Monsters, I apologize in advance. But all that's left to do is to say goodbye from me.
Yeah, and goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we will see you guys next week when we hopefully will be talking Ali's wedding.